Thank you, Mr. Hodge. And thank you, Mr. Young, for helping me out Tuesday night. Join us in a moment of silence, please. All right. Approval of the agenda. We have a motion on that.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Second.
Second.
Ms. Sharp. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Approval of consent agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, have any visitors? Recognition. Mr. Spurlock.
Yeah, last night we introduced our new staff attorney, Sarah Page. So we'd just like to say Ms. Page has been very busy the last few days. We look forward to having her for many years.
Okay. All right, let's move on to Spotlight on Education.
All right, Spotlight on Education. We have our Cold Wildcats today here from Christiana Elementary. If you guys would come on up. You know, one of the things that I spoke to someone back last spring about was how coding is a big thing, but it's also occurring in the lower grades. And, you know, as I get to go out and travel around to some of our elementary schools, I just happened to stop by Christian Elementary, and this was brought to my attention. I'd like for now, if you'd tell us all about it there.
All right. Well, I'm Angie Baker Templeton, principal of Christiana, and we're bringing you Code Wildcat tonight. This kind of came about because Mr. Spurlock asked all of us principals to be involved with the Chamber of Commerce, and so I signed up for the very first meeting, and it was Rutherford Works with the technology meeting. And so I attended that, and in the meeting I realized quickly I was kind of the outsider in the meeting. I was the only elementary person in the room. Everybody was high school, college, and everybody in the room focused on high school or college. And as Dr. Ash from Central spoke about his classes at Central and how the majority of students in the coding classes and higher math classes are boys, very few girls, one or two girls, I kind of popped in and said, you know, we really need to talk about having technology camps in our county for elementary kids, because at our school, we are blessed to have lots of technology. Julie Benson is the former principal there, so you can imagine how blessed we are with technology. And she brought in a lot of computers, iPads, and so forth, and recently we've brought in a lot of robots. And the one thing we notice in elementary schools, they are sponges to learn, and they are not fearful of technology like we tend to be. They do not know life without technology, and we notice that there's no differentiation in boys and girls in their love of technology. So my philosophy is if we can expose all of these students to coding from kindergarten on, we have a kindergartner here, all the way up to 5th grade, that our goal would be when students get to high school that we see more females and we have more males also in these classes. And so it will set them up for our goal of you know, involving CTE, having them in the CTE path in the future. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bogan, the assistant principal at Christiana, and let him kind of talk from the high school perspective and technology and how fast we're growing.
Good evening. We are in continuous pursuit of meeting Rutherford County Schools' mission of empowering today's students to meet tomorrow's opportunities. And coding as well as blended learning are just a couple of the programs that we have in place to meet that. And As a former high school teacher at Riverdale High School, I would often hear conversations among students where they would state 2 to 3 years into their pathway that they had perhaps selected an incorrect pathway, or they wished that they had chosen a different pathway. And so by integrating programs such as coding at a very early age, at the elementary school level, we are very hopeful and optimistic that students will be able to find and determine their interest as well as their talents at a very early age. And by the time that they do arrive to high school, hopefully they'll have a much more confident time in selecting and choosing their high school pathways. And as you can see, you know, we know that our society is just immersed in technology today. It's just part of our culture worldwide. And this graph depicts how we've progressed over time. If you take a look, you can see the telephone took 75 years for 100 million users to latch onto that globally. But if you look at more recent times, you can see social media platforms and even video games, such as Candy Crush, which is a video game application that students have on their phone. It took only 2 years for 100 million users worldwide to begin using that. So this is the direction that our students are going to be going in, and the talents that they will need and the skills that they will need that will be necessary for the future job outlook in the future. And so at this time, we're going to hand it over to our amazing tech coach, Miss Jody Boer.
Good evening, everyone, and happy Valentine's Day. We're bringing you the love of coding, and I do not need that microphone as it says stop by. But I have a group of kids here I'm very blessed, fortunate to be able to work with us, all these children, Christiana Elementary, as well as Smyrna Primary. So I brought some children today to show you what they do in the classroom, as well as take some of the stuff home with them as well. So I have some kindergarten to first grade, and not only do they just learn how to code, but they learn how to integrate it into the classroom with ELA and math, social studies, and science. So it's not just grabbing that robot and taking those things and getting them to code. It's how do we integrate it? They're learning people skills, brain problem solving skills, working together, teamwork, how to treat materials and products. So first up we have Garrison and Gentry, and the goal here for them was to listen to a story, and they had to tell the story's beginning, middle, and end of the story. They had to identify those 3 parts. And then what they had to do is take the robot and code that robot to move through those parts. And when they got to that particular part of the story, then Gentry recorded his voice, and he told what that part of the story was happening. So a few boys, so each of them had a job. One was the robot coder, and the other one was the robot manager. the story. Okay, good job, gentlemen. The next, and I'm going to move this out of the way. You can all come out over here with me. And then the next person we have is Grace. And Grace is in the 3rd grade. And Grace has been working on some math problems, and she's been working on some multiplication facts. Grace, can you tell them what you had to do? What your goal is here?
So pretty much we would have to get him to the end with all the horses. So like she has to spin, and I have to answer the math problems before he gets to God's face.
So she's racing the alpha to get to a spot, and she has to answer that math problem before it gets there and spins around. Okay? So she's programming, and this one runs by colors, so he recognizes the colors on the line.
Not so good.
But not so bad. So that's that problem solving in that brainstorming comes in, like how can we fix that problem?
So like we learn. So like because right here he likes going like if I had to.
But can you show them how it works?
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and try it, because you know what? It's okay to make mistakes, and if it makes a mistake, we have to figure out what happens, don't we?
Yeah. So like I have to do a question like 10 times more than what people say. So I the odds are before we even got.
So before he gets to the next spot, she has to answer the problem correctly.
Is a speed because there's a ceremony song.
So then she answers the math problem.
It would be 14, so I beat him again.
What's the next one? Hurry!
See that? Not good. So I always so it would be 0. So right here and
He's got a little problem, doesn't he?
and then he would reach the end. He does not like to do.
All right. So she's been practicing her math facts, and again, the goal was to race the alpha, teach you to answer them quickly, and also program that robot to get to those spots for her. Say, good job, Grace. Thank you so much for sharing. Now I'm going to demonstrate it real quick, and I'm going to have cameras get these set up. I'm going to have Thomas come around. Thomas, you can let that one down. We'll let Grace, the camera get that. Thomas has actually been doing some stuff on his own as well in the classroom and at home. And during the month of December is the hour of code. And so in the computer lab, we're able to push out and work on the hour of code where the kids learn how to do some basic programming. And we started with just basic movements of 90-degree angles, 180-degree angles in the classroom, right angles, moving forward, moving back, and counting spaces. And I used a simple caterpillar, and then built from there, and then we did actual walk in the classroom, and then they got to actually on the computer and program. Thomas got up to the level where he used to pick his own and do a dance. So he's programmed a particular character on here to do a dance. So Thomas, do you want to tell him a few minutes or step through what you did here? And then you can walk around and show him.
So first the setup. We have the setup, which
I'll show this. This is a little difficult for the computer.
there's the setup right here, where right when I press run, the setup, all the code or blocks in that area right there is how they start, and then the next step I did is I see how that looked. It looks pretty good, and then I went and took it a step further and go to every 2 measures I make them do something else, or I make their visible invisible or
So did you have to just use some math skills and some reading skills? Awesome. Hey, you want to go around and show me? I'm going to push the button and play it, and then we'll get our little dashes ready to go. Ready to go? It's fine if they're all here. Okay, so get them all set up. Get back to and I'll push the button. We're going to walk down the other top to the other end, Thomas, and then we'll get ready to go in here. See you? All right, so while Thomas is showing me that real quickly, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do next. Did These are gas robots, and they are run by block coding as well. And what the students have done is we picked a song, and we're studying the 1920s, the Roaring '20s in the 5th grade, and the Great Depression. And so what they had to do is actually learn the rhythm and how music grew from the 1920s and what we have for music for today due to all the culture. So they took the robots and programmed to the beat and the sound of that music. But for tonight, we did a little more modern day song, I guess you could say, that they want to use. So we had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, of programming them and synchronizing these dancers. Now I can tell you they're not perfect. Because then we learned some problems that one of the dancers will go one way when you're supposed to go the other way. And that's just how it is. So, all right, so Thomas, you ready to come over here? So these guys have been practicing really hard, and we're hoping that they don't crash into each other. All right, you guys ready? Are you going to do the 1, 2, 3? You want me to count you down? Okay. All right, so it's going to be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in just a second. Have me play the music. Hope nobody calls in the middle of this. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us. We always love to share what our students are doing, and thank you for your support and for all you do, and happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow.
It's good. Very good.
I don't remember what I did in kindergarten.
It wasn't that.
Probably not much, right?
Coloring.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Todd's got a comment.
What?
He's got a comment. Mr.
I think it was probably 2 years ago at National School Board Conference that Mr. Young and I, we were looking for a class to go to, and we went to one of these coding classes, I think put on by Apple, and we took our staff attorney to see if he was any smarter than we were, and I never knew what coding was, and how long did we do it, an hour? An hour class or whatever? And it was some interesting stuff. It was way over my head, but when I got back, I talked to Mr. Odom about it. And, I didn't know we had it, but it was something. I think we tried to go to the second class, another follow-up, and it was, full, so we never got to go. But if you ever get a chance to go to one of them, it's still over my head. But,
Well, was the attorney smarter than you?
he wasn't a bit.
After what I saw here tonight, I think they're going to have to change that game show from "Are you smarter than a fifth grader?" to "Are you smarter than a kindergartners?" It's
It was
wonderful.
good.
Thank you.
It is good.
I'll tell you what, that's impressive. How
Yes.
Yeah, they actually, they had a school district out there that every student gets an iPad. And they start this coding at these young ages like this, and it was truly amazing. I never had that much fun with math and reading when I was that young, so.
you.
All right, let's see. Well, let's talk about some sign-in bonuses then.
Okay, signing bonus incentive for hard-to-staff subject areas, and it's on tab 2. The signing bonus incentive for hard-to-staff areas submitted to the state each year is presented for board approval. Recommend motion to approve the signing bonus incentive for hard-to-staff subject areas for the 2019-20 school year as presented.
Okay, anybody have any questions? Comments?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, just, do we have any idea at this point, and I know we probably don't, but what kind of budget, I mean, how many of these do we think we're actually going to wind up having to pay out? I mean, is there an estimate?
We really don't. I think the 2 years, 1 year, I think 2 years ago, 12, and was it 8 last year? Right.
And there are strings attached in the contract, right, as far as them having to serve a certain amount of time, or the bonus has to get paid back?
Exactly. You know, and like I stated yesterday, or whenever it was, I can't remember, but anyway, we start here in another week or 2 weeks, and some systems have already had theirs, so we'll probably need to look at revisiting it now as we go forward. We may start after the second day of school opens up. Yeah. I hear you.
Have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Moore, second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, contract agreement.
Yeah, contract agreement with Sherry McCrary and Rutherford County Schools. In tab 3, Mrs. McCrary will provide one training for Rutherford County Schools Blended Learning Academy on Saturday, March the 9th of 2019 at the Rutherford County Professional Development Center for current district teachers who are selected to participate in the 2018-19 Blended Learning Academy. Contract fees will be in the amount of $300 for the 6-hour training. This fee will be paid from Title IV funds and will be processed through the regular payroll accounting system of Rutherford County and is subject to all usual and customary employee withholdings. Recommend approval of a motion to a contract for Sherry McCrary in the amount of $300 for providing one 6-hour blended learning professional development training as presented.
Any questions, comments? Okay. Need a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Facilities.
Our facilities use approved for exemption pursuant to Board Policy 3.206, public education schools and institutions, post-secondary education institutions, private universities and colleges, governmental entities or agencies that provide benefits to the Rutherford County school system or have in-kind relationship approved by the Director of Schools may request the Board of Education to allow an exemption from the use of facilities fee, which the Board may allow or deny based upon details of specific requests. The following groups qualify for the exemption. As we read the other day, those that listed below there are Cub Scout Pack 307, Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, River Oaks Community Church for free community sports camp, and those are the 3. And what will be taking place. Recommend motion to approve the following groups requesting fee waivers for the use of facilities pursuant to Policy 3.206.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's see. Number 12, financial matters.
General purpose school budget amendment, accounting. This amendment uses $40,000 of the unbudgeted growth in local sales tax revenue to fund a transitional position so that training can begin for Jeff Sandvik's replacement. Mr. Sandvig will retire at the end of July. Recommend motion to approve the $40,000 in local sales tax revenue, account 4210, in order to fund training time for the Mr. Sandvig's replacement as presented.
Any questions, comments? Motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Young, second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Student support function.
Our student support function 72130. This amendment changes the general ledger codes for 6 existing central office-based employees. No new funds or positions are involved. The testing responsibilities were reassigned to our coordinator for data assessment when our safety and testing coordinator left. Mr. David Krim came on board in January to oversee the safety program, and this position is best recorded in the school support function. Our athletic director and lead athletic trainer are being moved from other salaries and wages, object code 189, to the supervisor/director, object code 105. The other 3 positions in this amendment are behavior analysts who are being moved to student support. These positions have been split between regular ed and special ed. We added 2 behavior analysts this year, and who are budgeted in other salaries and student support, 72130-189, because they handle both regular ed and special ed students. Recommend motion to approve and amend $128,507 to account 72130-105, $88,838 to account 72130-189, and $39,560 in related payroll benefits with salary funds coming from other salaries, object code 189. In student support function 72130, the regular ed program function 72210, and the special ed program function 7220 as presented.
Okay, any questions or comments on that? Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Second?
Second.
Mr. Young, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Proposed policy changes, second reading.
We read through these on Tuesday night, so we're going to recommend a motion to approve the policies 1.407, 3.201, 3.2006, 4.211, 6.404, and 6.502 as recommended by the Policy Committee on second and final reading.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan, second. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Yes, insurance update. We went over that pretty good the other night. Any other comments on that? Director's update.
Yeah, this past week, got to spend Tuesday on the Hill on CTE Day. I went along with some higher ed individuals, obviously our people, and business partners, and we got to speak about, the emphasis of career and technical education in Rutherford County. One of the things that was articulated to our state legislatures is there's more than one pathway for success. And I think in Rutherford County, we're doing that. We're providing opportunities for those that perhaps choose not to go the 4-year university route and want to leave us with some skill set that can provide them a adequate or above adequate salary and benefits along the way. So I think they're listening to us. One of the things that we saw yesterday, I think, was was a hit job, and I'll just throw it out there like it was, like it is, about the remediation of the school, of the students that are going to higher ed. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, but we'll leave that for another time. But I will say that we do have a robust career and technical education program in Rutherford County, and I think there's more than one way for pathway for success for our kids, and this is meeting one of those areas. And today, Ms. Sharp and myself got to go to Thurman Francis Arts Academy. We walked around with our new Commissioner of Education, Ms. Schwinn, Dr. Schwinn, and I think they saw some great things there at school. I was very impressed.
It was impressive.
It was.
Very impressive. Very proud of them.
And I think, you know, anytime that we can show off some of the great things that are happening in Rutherford County, I think that we want to do that. And our kids were fabulous, and I can't say enough about it. Also took the opportunity as she was getting ready to leave and asked about her return visit so that we can show her some of our career and technical education programs. And all in all, I thought that was a pretty good week.
All right, Ms. Moore, Tennessee Legislative Network.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand they've been really busy up there. What did you tell me, Ms. Sharp? Over 200 caption bills now that have been filed under the ed. I think, again, kind of like Tuesday night, I'm going to use my time this evening to talk about this resolution that we're going to do. And I guess, Mr. Reed, if you would, do you want to come up and do a second reading? Because I know you've had some changes. Just a little background or history for anybody in our audience or that's watching that may not have seen Tuesday's work session or the meeting prior to that where we had conversation about this, where we made a decision as a board. And again, I want to thank Mr. Hodge for bringing this forward because it very much needed to be done, you know, generated out of the concern of the things that we're seeing going on as far as potential voucher and educational savings account things coming up in this session, that we needed to step up and do a resolution, and we carried it a step further by recommending that we do the resolution in conjunction with our city school board partners to partner together on this. And I think it's just so important that, you know, we're all seeing, kind of like the hit piece article, that was about something different, but it kind of ties into the same and gets everybody stirred up, and we're seeing an awful lot of press and stories out there about how many people are for vouchers and educational savings accounts, but they don't show their statistics and they don't show where they've polled from. And, you know, I'm sorry, but 600 people polled that say they're in favor is not indicative of polling this state and polling the folks that count. And that includes, to me, all of our teachers out there as well. You know, not only do we represent between the two school systems almost, 60,000 students, but we also have over 3,000 teachers and administrators in our school system that understand the concerns about how badly these things could hurt us. So Ms. Mitchell from the REA is here this evening. I appreciate her being here. One of the things that we talked about, and I want to discuss it further after Mr. Reed goes over this and we make a decision is if this is going to be the final language we're going to move forward with, is that we need to start taking the initiative, much like the lobbyists and the folks that are getting paid to promote these programs up there on the Hill, that we need to start making sure we get our own press and our own side of the story heard. And Mr. Spurlock, I appreciated your sharing that story about the Williamson County folks getting to meet with their legislator, and there was a very good article that the Williamson Herald had done about that. So we need to have an opportunity to showcase our position as well. We're too big a school system and too much of a representative of the state of Tennessee not to. So after we get done with this, I am going to, again, kind of make the recommendation, we touched on it the other night, that we look at having some sort of a joint meeting. I don't know if we would call it a special called meeting, and I know that everyone is meeted to death. We've got spring break coming up. Our city school board, I'm sure, has their plates full too, but it was suggested to me that we have a meeting, and I think to include the REA as well, just to talk about our concerns, talk about our resolution, and in hopes that we're going to get some press coverage from this that's going to expose the lies and the things that are being told about, that are being promoted with these things, and that we can be heard as a system and as a community. So with that, I'll hush, and Mr. Rita, get away.
So we made a few changes to the resolution from Tuesday night to address the comments that some of the board members raised that evening. So if you bear with me, I'll read through. This is a proposed joint resolution with the Rutherford County Board of Education and Murfreesboro City School Board as well. I did talk to Mr. Campbell this afternoon, and he thought his board would be supportive of this. So the proposed resolution is, whereas the legislature for the state of Tennessee has resumed session and a number of paid lobbyists and private for-profit companies are seeking to have the state of Tennessee adopt a voucher program by which public school funds are diverted to private companies and private interests, and whereas many of the lobbyists and private companies and organizations are out-of-state companies and organizations spending significant sums of money to advance their agenda through a voucher program, and whereas the public education system of Tennessee is best managed by Tennesseans for which it serves and not by out-of-state companies and organizations, and whereas the Rutherford County and City of Murfreesboro school systems have been recognized as exemplary school systems in the state of Tennessee, and whereas the Rutherford County school system is the fourth largest school system in the state of Tennessee, and together with the City of Murfreesboro school system, the two school systems serve in excess of 59,000 students, and whereas the Rutherford County Board of Education and the Murfreesboro City School Board recognize that voucher programs and education savings accounts hurt public education, and whereas voucher programs hurt public education by taking dollars that would otherwise go into the public school system and giving those dollars to private interests, and whereas every public school system in Tennessee has cost to maintain a free public school system, and any funds taken from the public school system for private vouchers are not likely to be replaced by the state, and whereas school vouchers likely will lead to a tax increase as local governments will need to increase property taxes to pay for the lost revenue from the state going to private voucher programs, and whereas a loss of tax dollars will reduce funding available for academic programs and teaching staff at public schools, and whereas school vouchers send public dollars to private schools, creating a two-tier school system not open to all students, and whereas studies of voucher programs in Indiana, Louisiana, and Ohio have shown that students enrolled in private schools through vouchers perform academically worse than they performed in public schools, and the New York Times has reported such problems, and whereas studies have shown that students attending private school through vouchers in Indiana and Ohio score lower on reading and math tests compared to similar students in public schools, and whereas voucher programs do not fix lower performing schools but undermine such schools' ability to improve and perform better, and whereas paid pro-voucher lobbyists have lobbied for vouchers for the last several years, and whereas paid pro-voucher lobbyists are now attempting to achieve their goals through rebranding their campaign through education savings accounts, and whereas education savings accounts are the equivalent of vouchers and divert funds from the public school system to private schools and private benefit, and whereas funds diverted to education savings account will result in higher taxes in order to fund Tennessee's public school system, and whereas diverting public funds to education savings accounts results in no accountability over those funds to ensure that education dollars are actually been spent on academically successful programs in schools. Now, therefore, be it resolved unanimously by all of the board members of the Rutherford County Board of Education and the Murfreesboro City School Board, the Rutherford County Board of Education and the Murfreesboro City School Board oppose legislation establishing school vouchers and education savings accounts in Tennessee, as school vouchers and education savings accounts hurt the free public education system, divert limited state education dollars to private interests, have been shown to hurt the academic progress of students, and will result in the need for an increase in taxes to replace the funds going to private individuals and entities through voucher and education savings accounts. It's signed by the Rutherford County Board of Education and the Murfreesboro City School Board. So that's the resolution in the form we're presenting it tonight. If there's any changes or comments that any board member have, we can incorporate those into the resolution. But that's actually what's being presented for your consideration this evening.
I would like to just comment, and thank you so much, Mr. Reed, for your work on this. You know, we had talked about, and then we talked about it again on Tuesday, the possibility of trying to see if we could get our county commissioners to sign off on this as well. And I think we all determined pretty much that there's not, the timing is of the essence. And the process and getting the county commission and going before a full commission meeting and everything to get them on this as a joint supporter of this resolution probably is not going to work. So I kind of going back to the thought or the idea of, you know, holding an open meeting like that and possibly even, I think, inviting all of the commissioners and certainly inviting our legislators too. I know we've already had one legislative meeting, but that this would be essentially really a roundtable to talk about this one subject matter, not everything. So I'm kind of anxious to hear other board members' thoughts on that and how you think we might orchestrate this to make sure that we get the right kind of press coverage and attention that our side of the story needs to be heard.
I always think it's a good idea to me, as far as that goes. I've still got my doubts. It's just like the last meeting we had, of what we're gonna hear, feedback. It's gonna be very limited. We know that. I'll be glad to meet with them anytime.
I absolutely agree with you, and I'm not sure what kind of success we'll have in getting any of our legislative delegation there. To me, I guess, my thought process with this was more kind of along the lines of using it as an opportunity to really be open and share in detail actually with our county commissioners, because I know that's something, again, when you look at the size of this county, the size of the school systems put together and the commissioners that are our funding body that are going to be the ones that are going to help us figure out how to make up these lost dollars if this comes through, that maybe it's kind of a roundtable sort of thing with the commissioners, with this being the sole topic, and certainly that we would invite our legislative delegation. If they choose to show up or want to, we would welcome them, but that wouldn't necessarily be the sole focus of that meeting. And then I think we also probably need to make a determination tonight, if we decide on this resolution, and I'm not sure if this is something I'm assuming needs to be voted on, but we don't really have it on the agenda as a voting item. But we need to decide how, when and where and how we're going to go about the presentation of this to the delegation, and also, as we talked about on Tuesday night, distributing it to all of the legislators at the state, not just our local delegation. And open to thoughts, suggestions.
I like your idea. A meeting with commissioners to discuss it and invite the legislators. I'd be surprised what kind of participation you get from the legislators, or we get from the legislators, but I do think we need to bring the commission up to basically what we're dealing with and what they could be dealing with down the road here. And I'm ready to do it whenever you want to.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else, any thoughts or any concerns at all about that? Because
Anytime we can take something like this and show it to the commissioners that it's in our best interest, it's also in theirs. So whether we go ahead and sign it and send it on, or which I assume that's what we need to do. But we do need to take it to the commission and let them look at it and explain it if we need to, in my opinion.
And I think maybe even have some more planned kind of brief presentations from different people, even, maybe even someone from the REA and someone from the city school board, and then just kind of an open forum and discussion. But I think if we promote this well enough and we're able to get the press there, that perhaps our legislators will show up. But no, you're right. I think in the meantime, we need to go ahead and get the resolution in front of them. I mean, we talked about that on Tuesday, that, you know, it needs to be done, and I think the city's on board with it, so we should be able to make that happen pretty quickly. Again, I guess just need to know, or if anybody has any thoughts on how we go about presenting that. I've never done one of these before. I know we've got Day on the Hill coming up this next Tuesday. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to be there. I know that Ms. Sharp is attending. Are there any other board members that are planning on going? But I don't know that that would be the time or the venue or opportunity to present it or not. Mr. Reed, any experience with that?
What we've done in previous years with respect to resolutions is actually Ms. Michaels has mailed them to all the legislators in the state of Tennessee and to the governor's office, I believe. She can certainly speak for herself, but when the board has adopted the resolutions, we've had the board members sign those resolutions and then made copies of those, and we have sent them not only to just the Rutherford County delegation of legislators, but also to all the legislators in the state of Tennessee.
Okay. Well, and we could use this meeting as an opportunity to do another reading of it. Even though it's already been sent to the legislature, we could use it as an opportunity to do the reading, and that would kick the meeting off with the commissioners. And I know I spoke with Ms. Mitchell earlier in the week, and I think I'd mentioned that they had a meeting scheduled for next Tuesday that they had invited the legislators to. And unfortunately, they've had to scrub the plans for that meeting because they had no response. They didn't have any legislators coming. Which we all can relate to, unfortunately. But again, if we can get in front of our commissioners and help them understand and to be on board with us and have a formal presentation and reading of this resolution, and perhaps some good press coverage, then I think it would be a mission worth going after. So.
The commission, unfortunately, for our time frame, meets tonight. And if I'm not mistaken, it'll be a month before the 21 commissioners, actually be 20, and they'll appoint somebody in March, until they get back together as a 21-member group. But we could make copies of that and have it distributed to their mailboxes.
Absolutely.
As soon as we could get that done. And I might point out, too, that the city school board has a funding body as well, and the city council, and we need, I would think, to send them copies as well. I would think Mr. Campbell would absolutely want to do that.
Absolutely.
Could we just do that in our mailing? Ms. Michael's mailed everything, just include all them?
Yes, sir. They have mailboxes and Ms. Taylor, as you are aware, takes care of all that, and she'll distribute them to them. And most of them will get them because the committees meet right along, and when they come in, they'll check their mail, and there it'll be. They won't have to wait until the 14th of March, in other words.
I like that. I just want to make sure that, you know, the meeting that I'm suggesting, and I understand your point, Mr. Jordan, is not necessarily attending one of their meetings, but hosting one of our own and inviting them. And if all 20 or 21 commissioners can get here, awesome. If not, we'll hope that at least a majority of them will be able to attend. And I think we're just going to have to try to, if everybody's on board with it and the board agrees that we should move forward with this, then I think we just need to try to find the best date that we can, as early as we can, that we don't have a board meeting and that they don't have a commission meeting, and that would also work, you know, for the folks with the REA, so.
Did you say that if we could sign this tonight, you could get it to the city tomorrow?
I can deliver it to the city school board tomorrow, yes, if we sign it tonight.
Well, I'm all for it if y'all are.
With it being a resolution, do we need to take a formal vote on it?
You need to take a vote on it, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I'll make the motion then. Motion for the board to approve this unanimous joint resolution of the Rutherford County School Board of Education and the Murfreesboro City School Board in opposition to school vouchers and education savings accounts.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge. Any other questions, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Chairman, I got one more, I guess, question,
Okay.
for probably Mr. Reed. And I don't know if it's something good or not. I know we got this town hall meeting coming up Monday night, out at Oakland, I believe, correct?
That's correct.
Be-
Tuesday,
would it be
Tuesday.
Beneficial, would it be beneficial, you know, it's a public meeting. Would it be beneficial for him to, director to bring this, comment on this, what we're dealing with?
It's a notice public meeting, so yes, he can comment on this resolution that's been adopted here tonight by the Board of Education and talk about any concerns that he has with respect to vouchers or the education savings accounts. You know, when you hear education savings accounts, when you first hear it as a layperson, you don't really understand it. You think, well, what's wrong with the education savings account? It sounds like an okay thing, and why would anyone oppose it? Which it may be the reason that the terminology has changed from vouchers to education savings accounts, because, you know, it just will be kind of contrary to anyone to oppose education savings account. But what I guess what people will not understand or realize unless the education people inform them of it is really what education savings accounts are is taking money from the public school system that would otherwise go to the public school system to educate a child and putting it in the hands of a private parent for them to spend money however they want. Homeschooling, to go to private school, to go out of state, or, I mean, with probably little accountability for it. So in the end, those dollars are dollars that would have otherwise come to the school system that would not be coming to the school system, that's going to have to be made up somewhere. And there's no mechanism under the ESA legislation that we've heard about for the state to kick in and replace those funds that school systems are otherwise going to be missing by virtue of the education savings accounts. So while, you know, at first blush, it sounds like it might be an okay thing. When you look at it and understand it, it really does hurt the public school system because it's taking money away that would otherwise come to the public school system to fund our public education system for all our kids and benefiting a few private individuals who might be able to replace it with some additional money and go to a private school and take their kids to a school other than what we have offered through the public school system. So in the end, it does compromise the ability of the school system going forward in years to come because the cost to maintain a school, you know, you have fixed costs to maintain the school. The cost to heat a school, you know, and maintain a school and maintain facilities are fixed costs. They're not dependent upon how many kids go to that school. Your electricity and utilities that you spend for maintaining a school are going to be there regardless if you have 1,000 kids in that school or have 700 kids in that school. So those fixed costs are not being replaced through these ASAs or voucher programs. So the only people left to pay for that is your county legislative body through property tax increases, which it might not show up the first year, but 2 or 3 years into this thing, that's when it's going to start to be noticeable. Because at that point, you're thinking, well, why aren't we getting enough money from the state to pay for these expenses we have in the school system? And it's because a chunk of that money that otherwise would be going to the school system is now going to pay vouchers and pay for education savings accounts.
Let me just add one thing to what he said, and I think everything he just said was exactly right. But with all due respect to private schools, when a child walks in and wants to enroll at a private school, the private school decides whether they want that child or not. And now, just look around our county at all the kids that we have got enrolled, trying to teach, that are reading way below level. They're from out of this country, maybe. All kinds of needs, everything that you possibly to imagine. They will not get into a private school. I almost can promise that. But it is our honor as a public school system to educate everybody. And we're going to do that. And this thousands of dollars that they're going to send and let somebody go to a private school is not going to make it to the private school, in my opinion. A lot of it is not. The money will never get there. And these children will be no better off.
My thinking behind the whole thing is what the director's doing. He's educating the general public on what we're doing within the school system. And the sad thing about this whole issue, and I know it's been this way for years, still is. The general public doesn't know what's going on, okay? And they're not gonna know what's going on until it's too late, if this works. So, I just got thinking, it may be a good opportunity, it's one of the issues we're dealing with, or we may have to deal with down the road, is this issue. And, whether you got 50 people there, 250 people, at least you're educating them. I don't know if the board's in favor of it or not, but, I'll tell you, I am, and if the board is, I'd like to give the director some direction, and let him, if he wants to mention it, let him mention it.
I think it's a great suggestion. You know, if the director's comfortable with it, and as long as, you know, we can orchestrate it in such a way where it doesn't detract from the other purposes of that meeting and, you know, generate questions. But Mr. Hodge, you're right, the general public doesn't understand and doesn't get it, and it's such a large part of the problem. And when we talk about general public here, we're talking in large parents out there with kids in the school system that, you know, and I'm not certainly blaming or faulting them, but they're like many of us are these days. We listen to the sound bites and we hear what we want to hear, and we don't bother to delve in or research. And, you know, the fact of the matter is, these savings accounts, when you look at the way they're laying it out and proposing to do it, in my opinion, they are much, much more dangerous to what they could do to the financial impact they could have on our public system, more so than vouchers, because they make it much, much easier for the parents to get the money, and they're proposing using it in ways that, you know, don't have anything to do necessarily with going to private school or bringing my child home to homeschool, but they're talking about these dollars will be put in a savings account they can use for extra curriculum or for this or for that. Well, it's, you know, and I like to use that analogy of that kid's book, you know, you give a mouse a cookie. And I'm not saying that parents shouldn't be making decisions about their children's own education. I want to make that real clear. We already have choice, and the parents already have a choice. But again, yeah, to take those tax dollars, and I'm repeating myself, but no, you're absolutely right. And I think that forum, any public forum, we have an opportunity to educate people to where they can truly understand this before they start forming these opinions, the better off we'll be.
I agree. It's the burden is on us to educate the public. Our legislators are not going to do it. They're the ones that's taking money from these lobbyists that supported the voucher program, which now they call it education savings account. So it's still the same thing, same people still involved, and it's up to us to get the word out there. We just got to figure out how we're going to do it and be effective.
Mr. Hodge said something just a minute ago, and I know you all heard it, and I'm going to repeat it. He said the general public does not really understand, and I think that's exactly right. I don't think that they understand that the public school system, which is our 40-some-odd schools now, and counting the city, upward to about 58,000 students, if somebody shows up at our door and they're in that district, and we're going to educate them. I don't care if they're in a wheelchair. I don't care. I don't care if they're blind. If they're blind, totally blind, we've got a program to take care of that. I mean, you name it, we're going to take care of it, and we're liable to do that. We not only are we honored to do it, and it's the law that we've got to do it, we want to do it. We've been doing it for decades. I don't think those rules are going to be in place at other places, at home schools or charter schools or private schools. Don't think so. Now, somebody can correct me if they want to, but I suspect that's not right. I don't know if parents know that or not. And of course, a large portion of our population are just paying for it and do not have children in the system yet. They may someday, or they may have, like me, they're all done. Okay, but you know, I don't think they're aware of the burden that, I think somebody used that word over there, that we have to educate everybody. What about the meeting? Do you want to say something about
So,
that?
yeah, so I'm wondering, and Mr. Jordan suggested that maybe we go ahead and look at some dates to see what we can do. I know, I've got the commission schedule pulled up here, and again, I think time is really of the essence on this, obviously getting the resolution in, but also holding this meeting. I don't know how much time we really need to plan. We have no board meetings next week. We do, of course, have our Tuesday night open house. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on what we're calling them.
No talks, yeah.
Thank you. And then I know the week after that, it looks like we've got 2 board meetings, and then Health and Ed is meeting on that Tuesday. So if we don't try to get it in next week, then I think we're pushed out to the first week of March, which, and right now, we don't have anything that first week of March on our calendar, do we? We do? Okay. What about Tuesday the 5th? Monday the 4th?
We've got a city council and commission, Monday the 4th, I'm sure steering will meet that night.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? It's going to take more than just for you all to sit back and forth and pick a day for us. We're going to have to pick a day that everybody else can agree with. And we don't have their schedules in front of us.
Trying to pull them up now, but the general commission meetings. Suggestions?
I'd recommend our chairman and Ms. Joyce get together and see what works best for everybody and set a date.
All right, we can do that. All right, anything else?
Thank you.
Mr. Hodge?
I don't have a whole lot. Only thing I just got, from U.S. Department of Education, just looking at their website. The only thing basically that I can see that's really come out here recently was on the 12th of February, and it had it's basically it has to do with purpose. It's dealing with the school resource officers' questions. Basically, it's U.S. Department of Education did this, come up with, I think, 37 questions is basically what it says, of what school resource officers, law enforcement, and the FERPA Act, what they can actually do, and basically what they on the commission put this together, and one of the takeaways that they basically put on this, as we know a lot of this is, it basically says the federal government needs to do a better job of providing useful information that's simple, streamlined, and clear, which that's one of the takeaways. But what I'll try to do is next meeting, I'll try to get a printout on basically what what's dealing with is student rights and safety and everything. Imagine, it's like you probably, do you know anything about any of this? Or?
About the purpose?
Yeah, about what they just, that study they just come out with? Or
I have not
anything
reviewed
like
that yet. I'll have you review it for the next meeting, so.
I just figured you may know something, may have seen it or whatever, but, other than that, I'll try to do some more work on it, when now next meeting, so.
Absolutely.
That it, Mr. Hodge?
That'll be.
Okay, general discussion. Anybody got anything else? Next board meeting, Ms. Michaels, is when?
27th and 28th.
27th, 28th?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm sorry, I lost my thought for just a moment. the director was talking about the hit piece that came out yesterday. I would like to somehow get something out there from our students that have already gotten scholarships or something like that. I mean, because there's a lot of success stories, and we know the bad stories travel fast. And I would like to see if we could get something out there to tout our successes and not let that stand.
A press release type of vehicle or something?
A press release, or I don't know, Mr. Spurlock, maybe you can think of something, but I don't think we need to let those stand and not.
One of the things I think we got to do first, this was 16-17 data, but we've got to drill down, and one of the things that some of this data would include was when I think by that time the initiative, I'm drawing a blank, that the governor came out with. Help me out.
Was it sale?
No, I'm not driving.
Tennessee Promise?
What's that?
Tennessee Promise?
Tennessee Promise, yes, okay, where we increased our dual enrollment, where they paid for a certain amount of classes at your community colleges. I think we understand that this data that they're collecting would include that part of it, a community college, completion in the community college, and also, a lot of times, students who feel like they want to go to college, and perhaps maybe they are, they have challenges in a certain area, they may go to a community college and take a remedial class. There's a strong possibility there. So that may, and I don't know that's the case or how much, but that may include some of that, And so I think before we really understand, the gravity of it, we need to get more information about it. I would like to see you can extract from one particular moment in time and make it fit your needs, but what does it look like longitudinally?
Right. We also know there's not equal effort or equal parental participation also. So those are things that can't be measured.
Right. Absolutely. And that's one of the things that, like you said, when I talk about certifications in some of our areas of career and technical education, those are some things that, are obviously we don't promote as much as we probably could. But quite frankly, we're just a neophyte in that right now. They just brought it out with the reauthorization of, ESSA, and changing the way it was from No Child Left Behind to ESSA. And these things this is what the governor is pushing for. So, we have had students that have been very successful in our career and technical education programs. One of the things that they're proposing is to include some of those certifications, some of that information there in the accountability piece. When we look at this, one of the things reason why you won't find private schools accepting vouchers is because, they can, it's called an application. You have to apply to it. So that's that part of it. One of the things also is how we're funded. We're funded by state and local and federal. The educational savings accounts will not include any federal dollars, because once you accept federal dollars, you fall under the auspices of what's required by all, and that's not going to be the case there. And although we don't get an enormous amount, it's enough to impact us as far as federal bucks are concerned. My thing is, I think what we've got to do is it's the parents, it's going to be their choice. I think it will be, whatever takes place will be piggybacked off of the special education voucher that was authorized, 2 years ago? Something like that? I think it'll probably be 2 years. This is the second year? Third year, okay. Probably something will be piggybacked off of that, because it's primarily, Mr. Sandvig, isn't that kind of treated like an educational savings account?
Absolutely. And basically, whatever the parents turn in for the receipts substantiating the expenses, the state sends them a check.
So I would assume, and of course you know what you mean assume, but it's going to look something like that. Now, our thing is, I think, you know, to me, you've got to know what you're up against before you know how to prepare for it. What's that? Yeah, receipts. We won't go there. Okay. So my point being is, I think what we can do in the meantime, as we go forward, we need to gather as much information of what this thing looks like. If you know, when you read the article in the Williamson Advocate or whatever the name of the newspaper is, it said, quote, "This will not impact Williamson County schools."
That's what one of their legislators said.
That's what one of their legislators said. So it would tell me that there's something in this process that there will be some kind of a barometer of what kicks in terms of this educational savings account. And I don't know what, I don't know what it is. I have my theories, but I won't share right now until I know for sure. But I think that's what I've been doing the last few days is trying to find out what does it look like. Someone knows. They know already. I mean, so that's what, I think once we understand it, then we know what we're up against.
Guarantee the lobbyists know what's in it.
Well, I would say so, yeah. And I would agree with that one also.
They know what's going on over there. I don't know why we can't get the same information over here.
Well,
We don't have a speaker.
According to
on
Mr.
this.
Reed the other night, I don't think that anybody can be excluded. If it's not gonna affect them, how's it gonna affect everybody else?
isn't the Speaker of the House from Williamson County? Okay.
He's one attack me.
Throwing that out there.
He's also been a big proponent of vouchers all along.
Right.
Just not in Williamson County, evidently.
You know, I'll just put this out there just to think about. The lead article in the morning paper was about remedial classes offered in various counties and the percentage of youngsters that needed, a lot of it was math, but really it covered a lot of different areas. And we got a lot of people in this room that got a lot of education. And I wonder, of course, I'm old and almost at Evergreen, but I certainly remember going to college, and I went to school with MTSU, proud graduate, but there were a lot of people, including myself, that probably needed remedial classes in something. But the difference between, me too, but the difference between today and the dark ages when I went is that today we can measure it. We didn't even think about it then. They didn't measure it. And I know just one quick example. My sister taught for years at Roane State, English, literature, and writing assessments. And she told me 20 years ago that the students that she got were definitely not ready for her English class. Absolutely not. And she had, and I said, well, why is that? And she said, well, they're ready they really need to go back through some English before they even get here. And that's a remedial class, isn't it? I would think that's what it is. So it's always been there, but now we can kind of measure it. And I'm not saying we shouldn't attack it.
Right.
I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that it's always been present, but today we can measure it. And if you just read that article this morning, which was accurate, I'm sure, and that's all you considered, it looks like that a terrible job is being done at a whole lot of places, and that's not true. That is
If
not
that were the
correct.
case, we would not be building like we are.
Yes.
What percentage, Dr. Anthony, do you say of our seniors go to college? That's what I was thinking, the same thing. Probably somewhere in the high 50s, low 60s. Right. Now, this is in 2019, and if you would go back Mr. Jordan, when you were going to college just a few years ago, you would not find 60% of our graduating seniors going to college. They would not be going to college. You'd probably find 15, maybe 20% at tops. So with that shift, now we have to put it back where the accountability piece belongs. You know, back in the 70s, when we had a reformation of that, the way to get ahead is everyone has to go to a four-year university. And, you know, public education was part of this, and our State Department obviously was part of that. And a lot of people went to college. And at that time, you know, universities, higher ed was not being held accountable on graduation rates or the number of remedial courses they were offering to students. They are now. And they get no funding for those remedial classes. So I say all that because it's once again, it's an issue that was not created by educators, but it was created by bureaucracy.
Well, I had, since you brought me back into the conversation, I had an advisor, of course. And usually I called him Dad, but he said, you will go to college. That pretty much took care of that. Okay, whether I needed remedial work or not. But I was talking about my sister, and I think I said this in here one time, maybe years ago. I told her, with the Tennessee Promise and all that kind of stuff, I said, well, looks like to me now, you got smooth sailing. You're going to have students coming in there, and she did. I said, they're going to be coming in there like crazy. Your job is secure. And she said, you're right. She said, but I'll tell you one thing. She says, they won't be there in January. They'll all flunk out.
That's right.
Because they weren't ready. Now, that's not her fault. That's the fault of, I don't know, but it wasn't her fault. So anyway, I just thought I'd pass that along for whatever it might be worth.
I don't see anybody asking the question or questioning the fact that, they've got these certain percentage of students that they're saying are needing remedial courses that were graduating from our high schools, when we're not also, and I think this is kind of what Ms. Sharp was getting at, not talking at all or seeing it in the headlines about the multitudes that we do graduate that go on to college to excel, and they graduated from the same high school. So is it really our public school system that's dropping the ball? And I will say, I was one of those kids back in the 70s that was told by their boss too they were going to college whether they liked it or not, and I needed a remedial math course at MTSU, and I went to the best high school in the state of Tennessee, at least back then, or was considered one of the most academically favorable schools. And yeah, I still remember being teased about it that I had to take Mickey Mouse math my freshman year.
All right, any other discussion? A board meeting on 27th, 28th. We need you to sign the resolution, Mr. Reed here, before we go on. There's no other discussion, we're adjourned.